Hey guys, welcome to What We Watch in the Shadows, Episode 1 podcast. Hey guys, welcome to What We Watch in the Shadows. This is the podcast episode that we're going to be running here on a somewhat regular basis. I'm going to be bringing to you guys through my social media movies that I'm going to be watching, and then we're going to bring it over here to the podcast. We're going to go some in-depth reviews on those movies, and hopefully you guys in the comments can come back with me with them, or go watch the movie and then come back to the comment section later, and we can discuss it there. And eventually might turn this into a live platform. We'll see. But for now, just pre-recorded podcast, just straight through, no cuts, and we'll try our best here. And so for this episode, guys, I thought I wanted to do this first episode around horror themed when I was creating this channel. Well, I was about a few months behind because this channel was supposed to get started back in like October-ish, and I just couldn't get to it yet. And I thought, well, being that, finally, okay, I'm going to start this podcast review and everything like that, I was like, well, I still kind of do the horror theme. And then I kind of came across the idea when I was realizing that February of this year is one of the new incarnations of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. So I thought, what better way than to pick 3 horror movies, one of them being Texas Chainsaw Massacre related. And then, like I said, we kind of go behind the scenes of each of these movies. And then if you guys want to check them out, feel free to do so. Let me know when you do watch them in the comments what you thought, or if you have seen these movies, what you think of them. And we'll get started. But the 3 movies that we're going to be talking about, like I just spoke of earlier, first one is going to be the classic, hit the mic, 1974 Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is the DVD version. I know that I'm sure there's been several re-releases of this film in different platforms, so this is just a copy that I have. It's a steelbook version. I really enjoyed this copy of it. I love this case and everything, so I'm just going to stick with this for now. It's got a lot of good behind-the-scenes features on it, so I didn't really need to upgrade it to any point at any moment here, so I kept it with that one. The next one I got was a movie that the 3 ideas. Okay, so I get back here. This is why I'm going to get this better once we start doing this more often. The idea of the 3 movies that we would bring forth would be one of a more nostalgia base, so an older-ish movie. I would say at least maybe not old, but maybe at least like 15, 20 years old. One in the middle there that's been out for a little while. That maybe you never heard. One that maybe nobody's ever heard of, type movie, and then this is why I don't do this. More recent film. So that being said, okay, so the oldest one we were going with was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a movie that nobody, I'm sure, probably really ever heard of. I discovered this at a thrift store, and it is called 100 Ghost Street: The Return of Richard Speck. So unheard of type movie we're going to talk about here. And then for more recent film, we're going to go with one I just picked up on Blu-ray, and I finally watched it, and boy, do I have a lot to talk about with this one, which I'm excited, is Scott Cooper's Antlers. So I've been really excited about this movie, and we'll get to that one later on. We're going to start in order here. So we're going to start with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, guys. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out in October 11th, 1974, on a budget of $80,000 to $140,000. So back in the 70s, that's quite a bit of money. But in box office, turned around and made $30 million, which, again, so 70s, $30 million is quite a bit of change. So really impressive there. Rotten Tomatoes didn't really have a whole lot on this, but if it was updated to after the year 2000, it had a review score of 89%. But when it was released, it had a lot of mixed reviews because, again, a lot of people weren't sure about this movie and everything. And again, for its time, it was definitely above its way because it was really what's gotten started of the slasher films and everything. So if you've never even heard of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or if you're living under a rock and never heard of it exactly, it is about a group of friends basically just cross country through the state of Texas, and they come across this family and this household of crazy people. All not led by, but the main antagonist is the famous Leatherface. There's a lot of backstory behind this movie and what was the inspiration of it. They talk about like Ed Gein and stuff like that, famous serial killer from back in the 50s, especially with the cannibalism part and then the cutting of people up and that sort of thing and their body parts, everything like that. So First time I watched this movie, I want to say actually was during the Netflix DVD days. I was a little bit of a late bloomer when it came to the horror movie series world. I first heard about Texas Chainsaw Massacre around early 2000s. It was actually when I saw Freddy vs. Jason. There was a preview for it on that movie for the remake one that came out in 2003. I never even heard of it, really. Again, I kind of just started getting into horror movies at a late age. I wasn't really brought up to watch a lot of horror movies or movies in general. I did actually explore a lot of it on my own. So I remember the trailer. I was actually pretty freaked out about, especially the whole like camera thing. It's like that sort of thing. It was really freaky. But then I didn't even realize that was all from like the original movie, which is pretty fascinating. I didn't even realize that. So to them to bring it forth to this, newer release type films, I thought was really interesting and cool that they kind of kept that nostalgia feel there. But anyway, so yeah, it's a group of friends that, end up at this house. They're trying to find some help with their vehicle, that sort of thing. And then they, stumble across this guy and Leatherface starts picking them off one by one. Some things that people I know say there's a lot of controversy around the filming of this movie. Like if you watch a lot of the behind the scenes stuff on here with the interviews and everything, like nobody wants to ever talk to each other ever again. It seems like all the interviews are clearly separated. People talk about the badly situations with the production. I mean, they're filming it in Texas, and they're talking that it's 90 to 100 degree temperatures on a daily basis. There's talk about the one dinner scene at the end of the movie that they say was so incredibly hot and bad that it was actually rotting a lot of the food on the table and stuff like that. So it's just really interesting that they, the director, clearly want to make it authentic. And it's a very raw looking movie, which I really appreciate. There's obviously back in the 70s, like CGI and stuff wasn't a thing, but there's no, prosthetics. There's no, sort of like making it pretty looking type movie. It was very like everybody's sweaty, everybody's dirty. They just, that just makes it look the way it is. And that's what I appreciate the most because it's what I'm sure he was going for in the look wise. And he went with that and made it look really good. The one interesting background thing too I kind of found about is actually when he was releasing this movie after he filmed it, he was trying to get a PG rating. So basically he kept the gore and violence to a minimal. There's no like foul language, no nudity, that sort of thing. And it backfired on it because the ratings people basically thought, he thought, he by him trying this method out it was even creepier the way the movie portrayed, and it kind of shows because like you kind of never really see stuff. You just kind of like see a lot of close-ups and stuff, like when Leatherface attacks the guy with a hammer before he shuts the door, like it's a close-up of his face, and you just kind of like you just hear a thud noise. You do see one little hit there, but beyond that, it's kind of it's interesting that it kind of backfired him, and they actually threatened him with an X rating. To which point he finally released and said, okay, I'll release it what you guys approve of, and was R-rated. So that was kind of an interesting fun fact there. The movie as a whole is, really well done for its time frame, and then it really holds up to this day. I mean, there's so much creepiness involved to it, and I thoroughly enjoy it. The only thing that I think is kind of silly and funny, I mean, granted, it's a different time frame, so hitchhikers and that sort of thing is clearly it comes and goes. Versus nowadays, you wouldn't be caught dead picking up somebody on a highway because that's just nuts. But like I thought it was funny when they pick up the guy at the very beginning of the movie, and he's clearly a crazy like type person individual, like, but they kind of are just like, I'm not sure about this guy. He eventually takes the one guy's knife and like cuts his own hand or whatever, and then hands him the knife back, and they all kind of just stare at him. And then they're just like, oh my God, what are you doing? And then he's stayed on the van with them, still laughing. And they're still like staring in awe at him and stuff. And I'm just like, okay, that would be my number one reason to kick you out of the van now at this point, and you're cutting yourself on my van. But they just kind of looked at him all like, okay, no big deal. And he has like blood on his face too and everything. Granted, he said he came from a slaughterhouse, so I guess that's kind of why they are okay with that. But I don't know. There's so many red flags to me when it comes to like strangers being put in your car. And I get, again, it's the 70s. It's a lot different. But I was just like, nope, no bueno. So I that's the only part that was kind of a little silly. I mean, it's a horror movie, but I thought that part kind of stuck out to me. The DVD part, I don't know if the newer releases on this contain this, but there's quite a few really in-depth documentaries about the movie here, which I really appreciated. So I was watching a lot of those. So a lot of talk about, again, the production and then the creation of the movie. That's when they're full, like most movies come today with like behind-the-scenes features, bonus features are like 5-minute, quick, just boom, 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 and there's maybe like 4 of them total on the DVD. These are full like hour-length discussions, which I really like. So those were really cool to watch. But again, Texas Chainsaw Massacre still holds up to this day. Definitely worth a watch if you've never seen it. You're nuts. I can't believe you've never seen that movie. But really, really cool. And they re-restored this and remastered it on this, which they clearly advertise on there. But they did a really great job on this case here, or in this case, but this feature here. So I don't have any plans to really need to upgrade that anytime soon. So, but it's a good movie. It's not sponsored by Celsius. So the next movie, again, so it's movie that probably nobody has ever heard of, and that's what I kind of like to find out there in the wild when it comes to my thrift hunting stuff, especially not just any movies, but horror movies in general, because those are usually just really bad good ones. So it is, again, this one called 100 Ghost Street, The Return of Richard Speck. This one is kind of this is a type of movie that I never. Well, let's go on the background of this movie. It came out in July 24th, 2012, on a budget of $150,000. So, quite an expensive movie for being this type of release here. No box office that I could find out on it, so I assume it never went to theaters. It was just a straight to DVD type situation. But for $150,000, this movie actually looked pretty good. Rotten Tomatoes score of 11% for audience. So. We don't got a lot we're working with here, but so basically this is what is called of a genre called mockbuster, which I had never even heard of. Let me know in the comments if you ever heard of mockbuster, and if you have, let me know some movies out there that I should look for that are in the mockbuster genre. Mockbusters are basically movies that capitalize on blockbuster movies. This one was capitalizing on the Paranormal Activity movies, and specifically, I guess, number 4. I'm not quite sure why 4 specifically, but that's just from the research that I found out on it. It's basically about a group of documentary filmmakers going to this home and a murder happened to it 45 years prior. A guy killed like a bunch of people inside of a house, and they're now it's following the camera crews going to this house to read up on it. Find ghosts, that sort of thing. It's got like some women that are kind of like walk through speakers, and they're all doing hey, right here is where this murder happened, this right here this murder happened, and then a bunch of like camera crew type people, and they're doing the typical Paranormal Activity. They have pre-set up cameras like in the rooms. They got infrared and night vision, all that sort of stuff, and then basically one by one everybody just starts to disappear and die. Spoiler alert. Anyway, so overall this movie is it's okay. I actually don't think it's a bad flick, especially for it being $150,000. It looked like a $150,000 movie. I know that's not a lot nowadays. I mean, this is 9 years old, but for any budget on a movie, I mean, the first Paranormal Activity movie, I think I want to say was like $50,000 to $60,000. So, and that movie looked even cheaper than this one. Like, this one had a lot of pretty impressive visual effects, because again, these type of movies are trying to do with the whole ghosts and pulling people and moving them around and stuff. Like, there's a really impressive shot in there that I was actually like surprised with, and it's there's a girl that gets attacked early in the movie, and then they kind of try to they give her some medicine to put her to sleep to not think about everything, because they want to continue filming the movie. And she is laying in bed, and basically the ghost or demon or whoever it is, you see her just laying in the bed with the the camera in the corner, the security camera, and her clothes start to be removed. And I don't know, just shots like, not because it's a naked woman or anything, but like shots like that where I find appreciation where you're kind of like, how do you film this type of trick shot? Because clearly it's there's nobody there. They're using either someone in like a green double suit or something like that that's doing it, or lines or whatever it may be, visual effects. I'm not quite sure. Stuff like that, I'm always kind of curious to see if it's more of a practical or a visual effects process. So that's why I kind of always like the Paranormal Activity movies, because not only just they had good scares, I thought, but they had some impressive filming aspects and like shots that they did to those movies to make them like seem legitimate ghosts in these movies. But so for $150,000, I thought the movie actually looked really well. I mean, the acting's very subpar. It's obviously clearly a bunch of no-name actors and actresses in it. They held their ground. Okay, so I clearly got to fix the settings on my camera because clearly it has a auto shut off after so long of recording consistently, maybe because it thinks it might be left on or something. But anyways, back to 100 Ghost Street. Again, worth a watch for certain time frames, that sort of thing of horror movie. Again, worth a watch. It's not terrible. It's worth a watch. I'd say at least one time. Again, just something different, and you don't get more of just an oddity type movie. But anyways, so our third and final movie that we'll be talking about this evening is called Antlers, directed by Scott Cooper. I'm a big fan of Scott Cooper's work. He's done a lot of pretty good movies, really good movies, a lot of Oscar-type movies too. Crazy Heart, Black Mass, Hostiles or Hostiles or something like that, Out of the Furnace. I'm a fan of pretty much every movie that he's done so far. He decided to finally jump into the horror area, and I was really appreciative of his work on this because I thought it was a really well done horror movie. So kind of some background on this movie. It was supposed to come out, interestingly, in April of 2020, and then the world had to come to an end, which I was so mad because I was probably one of the most excited movies I was looking forward to was this, and then sure enough, just a month and a half prior before it was supposed to release, the world shut down, and then it basically just got postponed until October of 2021. Budget I could not locate online. Box office not the greatest, $18 million. So again, I don't know if that's due to the whole situation in the world right now, and that's why that hurt it. But overall reviews, 60% for critics, 68% for users on Rotten Tomatoes. I can agree to that. Maybe a little bit more. I'd probably give it probably a 75%, almost something like that. But kind of background about this movie. So it's about this kid whose dad is attacked by some kind of creature, and then it creates his dad and his brother get sick from this creature's attack, and basically keeps them locked up in his house. And he then kind of has to keep the secret, and then you have his teacher and the sheriff are kind of noticing something odd and peculiar about him in the situation, and that's when they kind of start to dive too deep into someone's personal life, because then it comes back to haunt them. One thing I thought was funny, because I never really realized this, so the lead actress in this movie is Carrie Russell. I wasn't familiar with the name or the actress. She just looked familiar to me, so I did one of those Wikipedias afterwards, and I'm all like, oh my god, it's the chick from Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, the main crush girl for not Wayne Selinsky. I forgot the kid's name. Whoever the son's name is, it's his love interest in the movie. I was just like, oh my god, that's her. Where's she been all my life? Still looks good, I think, for her age. But anyways, again, I also was really excited for this movie. So finally, it was only in theaters for maybe a couple weeks out here, and then it got pushed out right away when you started having all the November, December releases. So I never got to see it in theaters. So eventually came out on Blu-ray this week, and I just snacked it right up. I didn't care about the pricing. I usually wait for Black Friday type pricing on movies, but that one I really wanted to watch, didn't want to wait, so I just snagged it up. Overall, the movie is really well done. I think acting wise, everybody holds themselves up. It's got the guy Jesse from not Jesse Pinkman, but his name is Jesse Plemons from Breaking Bad and stuff like that. He plays a sheriff. He's holds really well, I think, in a lot of acting roles. Carrie Russell does really well. The kid does even good, I think, for what he was doing in this movie. Visually really impressive, again, for Scott Cooper, who's not really in the CGI and high visual effects type area most of his movies. I think he holds really well in this one. The visuals are really impressive. Also, the cinematography with the shots and the scenery, being in the state of Oregon, and just they do a lot of very bold and broad shots of the area and the mountains and the clouds. And I love type of movies where they really go in depth into the scenery to kind of make you feel what that vibe in that area is that they're living in when this movie's happening, that sort of thing. The overall movie, again, I give it a 75%. I think it's still, I didn't feel disappointed. I thought it was a good horror movie. Nothing special. I mean, there's no jump scares. It's not really a horror, scary, or horror gore movie. The gore is kind of minimal. It's just there to kind of fill your void a little bit, which is fine. So I don't expect a blood fest. I don't think those are the type of movies that go around anymore these days. So I think Antlers definitely did the right premise of it. The interesting kind of stuff that I found out when I was watching a lot of the bonus features about this was that Scott Cooper's background about this movie is a lot about what's going on in the world and the issues. And the premise of this movie is about opioid addiction and how the monster represents the terror in families of what they, the basically drugs, addiction, that sort of thing, and what it does to families, because that's basically what this monster is kind of like the destruction of this little boy and his family with his father and brother. And kind of just interesting to just kind of think about when you start talking about in the background and the behind the scenes stuff, you're all like, wow, like kind of. And the name of the creature too, even, which I meant to write down, I totally forgot, is actually because there's a whole Navajo basis behind this movie, and it's the name for greed, Greed, greed. I forgot the name of it. It's called like Wyndham something. I'm gonna butcher it, but that something kind of interesting fact they kind of twisted put into the movie, because then there's this gentleman that reveals the name of this creature, and that's what he says it was. So I thought that was kind of an interesting twist on it too. But again, overall, a really good watch and a really good flick. But I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast episode. I don't know how long this has gone now. I'm sure it hasn't gone super lengthy. I don't know how, on average, these episodes will go. I'm also solo here, so I'm not really feeding off anybody to talk about it. I'm just kind of giving you guys my 2 cents. That's why I may be able to turn into a live show eventually. But we'll start here. Baby steps on this channel, because, again, I'm just trying to get my feet wet on it and where we're going with it. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested, please subscribe down below for any future content if you haven't already subscribed. Thrifting, collectibles, movie reviews, all that sort of stuff will be on this channel moving forward, and I'm looking forward to producing more of it. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.